Hi, friends, how are you all? I'm back to tell you about Steve Chandler's 31 to 40 lessons on the best ways to motivate yourself. So keep listening. 31. Find a place to come from. Most people think they'll feel good once they reach some goal. They think happiness is out there somewhere, perhaps not even too far away, but out there all the same. The problem with putting off feeling good about yourself until you hit a certain goal is that it may never happen. And you know all the time, you're striving for it, that it may never happen. So, by linking your happiness to something you don't have yet, you're denying your power to create happiness for yourself. A lot of people use personal unhappiness as a tool, as proof of their own sincerity and compassion. Yet, as Barry Kaufman points out eloquently, into love is to be happy with. Being unhappy is not necessary. You can be happy and also be sincere. You can be happy and also be compassionate. In fact, loving someone while you are unhappy does not show up like love at all. Love, says the great American spiritual teacher, Emmett Fox, acts the part. Songwriter Fred Knight talked to me recently about how we human beings have learned to use and abuse unhappiness. He said he had made a list for me of the secret reasons white people think they should feel bad. If I feel bad, then that proves I am a good person, he said. Or, if I feel bad, I am responsible. If I feel bad, I'm not hurting anybody. If I feel bad, it means that I care. Maybe if I feel bad, it proves I'm being realistic and aware. If I feel bad, it means I'm working on something. That list gives us powerful motivation to be unhappy. But as Werner Erhard, personal transformation pioneer, has always taught in his well-known seminars, happiness is a place to come from, not to try to go to. I once saw Larry King interviewing Werner Erhard by satellite from Russia, where Erhard was living and working. Erhard had mentioned that he might be moving back to the United States soon, and Larry King asked him if coming home would make him happy. Erhard paused uncomfortably, because in his view of life nothing makes. He finally said, "Larry, I am already happy. That wouldn't make me happy, because I come from happiness to whatever I do. Your happiness is your birthright. It shouldn't depend on your achieving something. Start by claiming it and using it to make your self-motivation fun all the way and not just fun at the end." 32. Be your own disciple. So, why do I claim we have no willpower? Is it a misguided desire to protect myself? Is there a secret payoff in saying I have no willpower? Maybe if I absolutely deny the existence of willpower, I am no longer responsible for developing it. It's out of my life. What a relief, but here's the final tragedy: the development and use of willpower is the most direct access to happiness and motivation that I'll ever have. In short, by denying its existence, I'm shutting my spirit down. Many people think of willpower and self-discipline as something akin to self-punishment. By giving it that negative connotation, they never get enthused about developing it. But author William Bennett gives us a different way to think of it. Self-discipline, he notes in the Book of Virtues, comes from the word disciple. When you are self-disciplined, you have simply decided, in matters of the will, to become your own disciple. Once you make that decision, your life's adventure gets more interesting. You start to see yourself as a stronger person. You gain self-respect. American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson used to talk about the Sandwich Island warriors who believed that when they killed an enemy tribesman, the courage of that dead enemy passed into the warrior's living body. Emerson said that the same thing happens to us when we say no to a temptation. The power of that dead temptation passes into us. It strengthens our will. When we resist a small temptation, we take on a small power. When we resist a huge temptation, we take on huge power. William James recommended that we do at least 2 things every day that we don't want to do, and that we don't want to do them just to keep willpower alive. By doing this, we maintain our awareness of our own will. 33. Turn into a word processor. If you associate the word willpower with negative things, such as harsh self-denial and punishment, you will weaken your resolve to build it. To increase your resolve, it's often useful to think of new word associations. To weightlifters, failure is success. Unless they lift a weight to the point of failure, their muscles aren't growing. So they have programmed themselves, through repetition, to use the word failure in a positive sense. They also call what we would call pain something positive, the burn. Getting to the burn is the goal. You'll hear bodybuilders call out to each other, roast 'em. By consciously using motivated language, they acquire access to inner power through the use of the human will. Zen philosopher and scholar Alan Watts also used to hate the word discipline because it had so many negative connotations. Yet he knew that the key to enjoying any activity was in the discipline. So he would substitute the word skill for discipline, and when he did that, he was able to develop his own self-discipline. Language leads to power, so be conscious of the creative potential of the language you use and guide it in the direction of more personal power. 34. Program your biocomputer. If you're a regular consumer of the major news programs, you belong to a very persuasive and hypnotic cult. You need to be de-programmed. Start by altering how you listen to electronic radio gossip, the news, and shock and schlock TV shows. Program out all the negative, cynical, and skeptical thoughts that you now allow to flow into your mind unchecked. When you hear the news, headless woman found in topless bar, that was an actual headline in a daily New York City newspaper. I used to work for a city newspaper, and I remember how hard the editors in the newsroom would search for the most shocking stories they could find. The news is not the news. It is the bad news. It is deliberate shock. The more you accept it as the news, the more you believe that that's the way it is, and the more fearful and cynical you will become. If we realized exactly how much vulgar, pessimistic, and manipulative negativity was deliberately packed into every daily newspaper and most television shows and Hollywood movies, we would resist the temptation to flood our brains with their garbage. Most of us are more particular about what we put in our automobile's gas tank than we are about what we put in our own brain every night. We passively feed ourselves with stories about serial killers and violent crime without any conscious awareness of the choice we're making. How do we change it? By worrying about it? No. Rather than fretting about crime and apathy and whatever you wish would change in the world, it's often very motivational to heed the words of Gandhi, who said, "You must be the change you wish to see." San Francisco writer and musician Gary Lockman wrote a captivating essay called World Rejection and Criminal Romantics, in which he observed, "It's the Ted Bundys that get television coverage, not the thousands of self-actualizers who work away at self-transformation, quietly and anonymously. And it's their influence, not that of the Ted Bundys, that will shape the face of the coming century." Often we don't have an opportunity to skip the media reports of crime and scandal, so it's important that we listen in a way that always programs out the effect. We are pretty good at doing this when we pass the tabloids in the grocery store checkout line. We smile at them even before reading that aliens are living in the White House. We need to take that same attitude toward what passes as serious media. Once you've gotten good at factoring out the negative aspects of the media today, take it a step further. Make your own news. Be your own breaking story. Don't look to the media to tell you what's happening in your life. Be what's happening. 35. Open your present. Practice being awake in the present moment. Make the most of your awareness of this hour. Don't live in the past unless you want guilt, or worry about the future unless you want fear, but stay focused on today in case you want happiness. Until you can put your attention where you want it, said Emmett Fox, you have not become master of yourself. You will never be happy until you can determine what you are going to think about for the next hour. There is a time for dreaming, planning, and creative goal setting. But once you are complete with that, learn to live in the here and now. See, your whole life is being contained in this very hour. Let the microcosm become the macrocosm. Live the words of the poet William Blake and his description of enlightenment: to see a world in a grain of sand, and heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. Sir Walter Scott said he would trade whole years filled with mindless conformity for 1 hour of life, crowded to the full with glorious action, and filled with noble risks. It's amazing what can be done by people who learn to relax, pay attention, and focus, appreciating the present hour and all the opportunity it contains. It is said that in America we try to cultivate an appreciation of art, while the Japanese cultivate the art of appreciation. You, too, can cultivate the art of appreciation. Appreciate this hour. This hour, right now, is pure opportunity. The great French philosopher Voltaire was on his deathbed when someone asked him, if you had 24 more hours to live, how would you live them? Voltaire said, one at a time, 36. Be a good detective in your professional life, whatever it is, always be curious. When you meet with someone, think of yourself as a bumbling but friendly private detective. Ask questions. Then ask follow-up questions. And then let the answers make you even more curious. Let the answers suggest even more questions. This will motivate you to higher levels of consciousness and interest. When you prepare a meeting with someone, prepare your questions, cultivate your curiosity. Don't ever be at a loss for questions to ask. Most of us do the opposite. We prepare our answers. We rehearse what we are going to say. We polish our presentation and strengthen it, not realizing that our host would much rather talk than listen to us. If you are in business, you know that when prospective customers contract for long-term services, they want a company that's truly interested in them, that understands them, that will be a good consultant to them. To show a prospect that you are genuinely interested, you must be the person who asks the most thoughtful questions. To convince a company that you understand it, you will ask the best follow-up questions based on its answers. To convince a company that you will be a good consultant to them over the course of the contract, you will have outlearned your competitors by the inventiveness and quantity of your questions. Your curiosity will get you the business. But you can't just rely on impulsive, on-the-spot questioning. Being prepared is the secret. Preparing your questions is even more important than preparing the presentation of your services. Indiana's former basketball coach Bobby Knight always said, "The will to win is not as important as the will to prepare to win." This is not only useful in business. If you are about to have an important conversation with your spouse or teenager, it is very useful to prepare your curiosity rather than your presentation. When you prepare your curiosity, you always seem to have one more question to ask before you leave, just like Lieutenant Columbo from the old TV show now showing in reruns on cable. As the character played by Peter Falk, Columbo disarmed his subjects by asking so many seemingly impromptu questions. Like a disorganized but innocently charming child, he would ask about the tiniest things. As he prepared to leave, he always paused at the door, as if absent-mindedly remembering something he forgot to ask. "Excuse me, sir," he would say, apologetically. "Would it inconvenience you if I asked you one more question?" great relationship builders ultimately learn that the sale most often goes to the most interested party, and the quantity and quality of your questions will measure your level of interest. You might be thinking that this doesn't apply so much to you because you're not in business, or you don't sell for a living. But heed the words of Robert Louis Stevenson: everybody lives by selling something. In Follow the Yellow Brick Road, Richard Saul Wurman writes about physicist Isidore Isaac Rabi, who won a Nobel Prize for inventing a technique that permitted scientists to probe the structure of atoms and molecules in the 1930s. Rabi attributed his success in physics to the way his mother used to greet him when he came home from school each day. Did you ask any good questions today, Isaac? By asking questions in your relationships, you are already creating the relationship, and you are already self-motivated. You don't have to wait for the other person to make it happen. 37. Make a relationship. Motivate yourself by giving someone else the ideas necessary for self-motivation. You can have any experience you want in life simply by giving that experience away to someone else. John Lennon called it instant karma. In most of our relationships, we stay focused on ourselves. We're fascinated by how we're coming off. We're constantly monitoring what others must now be thinking of us. We live as if mirrors surround us. Norman Vincent Peale used to observe that shy people were the greatest egomaniacs on earth because they were so focused on themselves. You can see that when you observe the body language of a shy person. The looking down and turning in. The curling up with self-consciousness as if surrounded by mirrors. When we shift our focus to the other person in the relationship, something paradoxically powerful happens. By forgetting ourselves, we start to grow. I have developed an entire seminar around this one shift. It is called Relationship. Spencer Johnson, author of The 1-Minute Salesperson, calls it the wonderful paradox. I have more fun and enjoy more financial success when I stop trying to get what I want and start helping other people get what they want. If you want to be motivated, shift your inspiration to someone else. Point out the strengths of the other individual to him or her. Offer encouragement and support. Offer guidance in his or her own self-motivation. Watch what it does for you. 38. Learn to come from behind. Progress toward your goals is never going to be a straight line. It will always be a bumpy line. You'll go up and then come down a little. 2 steps forward and 1 step back. There's a good rhythm in that. It is like a dance. There's no rhythm in a straight line upward. However, people get discouraged when they slide a step back after 2 steps forward. They think they are failing and that they've lost it. But they have not. They're simply in step with the natural rhythm of progress. Once you understand this rhythm, you can work with it instead of against it. You can plan the step back. In The Power of Optimism, Alan Loy McGuinness identifies the characteristics of tough-minded optimists, and one of the most important is that optimists always plan for renewal. They know in advance that they are going to run out of energy. In physics, says McGuinness, the law of entropy says that all systems, left unattended, will run down. Unless new energy is pumped in, the organism will disintegrate. Pessimists don't want to plan for renewal because they don't think there should have to be any. Pessimists are all-or-nothing thinkers. They're always offended when the world is not perfect. They think taking a step backward means something negative about the whole project. If this were a good marriage, we wouldn't have to rekindle the romance, a pessimist would say, dismissing the idea of taking a second honeymoon, but an optimist knows that there will be ups and downs. And an optimist isn't scared or discouraged by the downs. In fact, an optimist plans for the downs, and prepares creative ways to deal with them, you can schedule your own comebacks. You can look ahead on your calendar and block out time to refresh and renew and recover. Even if you feel very up right now, it's smart to plan for renewal. Schedule your own comeback while you're on top. Build in big periods of time to get away, even to get away from what you love. If you catch yourself thinking that you are too old to do something you want to do, recognize that you are now listening to the pessimistic voice inside of you. It is not the voice of truth. You can talk back. You can remind the voice of all the people in life who have started their lives over again at any age they wanted to. John Houseman, the Emmy Award-winning actor in The Paper Chase, started acting professionally when he was in his 70s. I had a friend named Art Hill, who spent most of his life in advertising. In his heart, however, he always wanted to be a writer. So in his late 50s, he wrote 2 books that got published by a small publishing house in Michigan. Then, when he was 60 years old, Hill had his first national release with I Don't Care If I Never Come Back, a book about baseball, published by Simon & Schuster. The book was a popular and critical success, and his dedication page is something I treasure above any possession I own. To Steve Chandler, who cared about writing, cared about me, and one day said, "You should write a book about baseball. Nobody cares how old you are but you. People only care about what you can do, and you can do anything you want at any age." Dr. Monty Buxbaum of the Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York has been one of many scientists conducting research into the effects of aging on the brain. He is finding that it isn't aging that causes a brain to become less sharp, it's simply lack of use. The good news is that there isn't much difference between a 25-year-old brain and a 75-year-old brain, said Buxbaum, who used his positron emission tomography laboratory to scan the brains of more than 50 normal volunteers who ranged in age from 20 to 87. The memory loss and mental passivity that we used to believe was caused by aging has now been proven to be caused by simple lack of use. The brain is like the muscle in your arm. When you use it, it gets strong and quick. When you don't, it grows weak and slow. Research at the UCLA Brain Research Institute shows that the circuitry of the brain, the dendrites that branch between cells, grows with mental activity. Anything that's intellectually challenging, said Arnold Scheibel, head of the institute, can probably serve as a kind of stimulus for dendritic growth, which means it adds to the computational reserves in the brain. Translation: you can make yourself smarter. Whoever told you that you cannot? Increase your intelligence, asks Dr. Robert Jarvik, inventor of the artificial heart. Whoever taught you not to try? They didn't know. Flex your mind. Develop it. Use it. It will enrich you and bring you the love of life that thrives on truth and understanding. Research shows that mathematicians live longer than people in any other profession do, and we never used to know why. Now, in further studies done at UCLA, there has been a direct connection established between dendrite growth and longevity. Mental activity keeps you alive, lose your mental challenges, and life itself fades away. Don't listen to the voice inside that talks about your age, or your IQ, or your life history, or anything it can slow you down with. Don't be seduced. You can start a highly motivated life right now by increasing the challenges you give your brain. 39. Come to your own rescue. After a seminar I gave in Vancouver, Canada, Don Beach, the sales manager of Bendorf Förster, one of that city's top businesses, sent me a tape of a song that he wanted me to hear. He said it reminded him of what I had been teaching his team about self-esteem. The song was a live performance by the old folk singing duo Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee. The song is called Love, Truth, and Confidence. It's about how we foolishly chase after love and try to discover the ultimate truth, while ignoring something much more vital to our happiness, confidence. The chorus of the song goes like this: love and truth / you can find / any place, anywhere, anytime / but you can just say so long / once, confidence is gone / nothing matters anymore. I never knew the true power of self-confidence until I began working with Dr. Nathaniel Branden and his wife Devers Branden. Both are authors and psychotherapists with the Branden Institute for Self-Esteem, and they have provided me with the most powerful insights I've ever received into how I operate as a human being. Dr. Branden's book, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, is unlike any other psychology book on the market, because in addition to its eloquently written philosophy on how to build inner strength, it also contains a full year's worth of practical, powerful, user-friendly exercises to raise your own consciousness and self-esteem. His sentence completion exercises are so effective and exciting that if you do them, I can say without a trace of exaggeration, you can get tens of thousands of dollars worth of personal growth therapy for the price of a single book. Before you assume that Branden's notion of self-esteem is the same as that being bandied about by New Age educators, you must read his work and listen to his tapes. Most people today think others can bestow self-esteem on us. Such misguided thinking leads to phenomena such as classes without grades and work without standards for excellence. Perhaps you have heard about that little league group in Pennsylvania that wanted to eliminate keeping score from baseball games because of the damage that losing does to children's self-esteem. When we confuse pampering and coddling with instilling self-esteem, we really encourage the upbringing of young, sensitive children who have no inner strength whatsoever. When it comes time for such overpraised, underachieving kids to find success in the competitive global marketplace, they will be confused, fearful, and ineffective. The concepts taught by Nathaniel and Devers Branden are intellectually ruthless and unsentimental. Some of the best ideas go all the way back to Branden's years working with the great novelist and objectivist, philosopher Ayn Rand. The Brandens have taught me how to objectively explore the weaknesses in my own thinking and to challenge the self-deception that was undermining my effectiveness in life. To trust one's mind and to know that one is worthy of happiness is the essence of self-esteem, writes Dr. Branden. The value of self-esteem lies not merely in the fact that it allows us to feel better, but that it allows us to live better, to respond to challenges and opportunities more resourcefully and appropriately. The two ideas contained in the Branden's work that have most helped me are: 1. You can't leave a place you've never been, and 2. No one is coming. I used to believe that I could run from all my frightening thoughts and beliefs about myself. But all that ever did was create deeper internal fears and conflicts. What I really needed was to get all my fears into the sunshine and demystify them. Once I systematically began to do that, I was able to dismantle those fears, as a bomb squad dismantles a bomb. Acceptance and full consciousness of those fears and the self-sabotaging behavior they led to was the place I had never been. Once I was in that place, I could leave. The notion that no one is coming was somehow terrifying to accept. The idea that no one was going to rescue me from my circumstances is an idea that I might never have accepted. That idea sounded too much like the final abandonment. It contradicted all my childhood self-programming. Many of us, even as grown-ups, devise very elaborate and subtle variations on the "I want my mommy" theme. The Branden showed me that I could be much happier and more effective if I valued independence and self-responsibility above dependency on someone else. When you accept the idea that no one is coming, it is actually a very powerful moment, because it means that you are enough. No one needs to come. You can handle your problems yourself. You are, in a larger sense, appropriate to life. You can grow and get strong and generate your own happiness, and paradoxically, from that position of independence, truly great relationships can be built, because they aren't based on dependency and fear. They are based on mutual independence and love. Once, in a group therapy session, a client of Dr. Brandon's challenged him on his principle that no one is coming. But Nathaniel, the client, said, "It's not true." "You came, correct," admitted Dr. Brandon, "but I came to say that no one is coming." 40. Find your soul purpose. How do you know what your true life is? Or what your soul's purpose is? How do you know how to live this purpose? The answers to these questions are yours for the taking, but you must seize the answers and not wait to be given them. No one will give you the answers. One good clue as to whether you are living your true life is how much you fear death. Do you fear death a lot, just a little, or not at all? When you say you fear death, wrote David Viscott, you are really saying that you fear you have not lived your true life. This fear cloaks the world in silent suffering. When mythologist Joseph Campbell recommended that we follow our bliss, many people misunderstood him. They thought he meant to become a pleasure seeker, a selfish hedonist from the me generation. Instead, he meant that in order to find out what your true life could be, you should look for clues in whatever makes you happy, what gets you excited. In the answer to that question, you'll discover where you can be of most service. You can't live your true life if you're not serving people, and you can't serve people very well if you are not excited about what you're doing, what makes you happy. I know I already asked, but the fear that cloaks the world in silent suffering comes from not asking that question enough times. In my own professional life, I have finally found that teaching makes me happy, writing makes me happy, and performing makes me happy. It took me many years of unhappiness to finally reach the point of despair necessary to ask the question, what makes me happy? I was the creative director for an ad agency and I was making a good deal of money producing commercials, meeting with clients, and designing marketing strategies. I could have done this type of work forever, but my horrible fear of death was my clue that I was not living my true life. People living deeply, wrote Anais Nin, have no fear of death. I was not living deeply. And it took me a long time to get clear answers to my question, what makes me happy? But any question we ask ourselves, often enough will eventually yield the right answer. The problem is, we quit asking. If you refuse to cultivate happiness in yourself, you will not be of extraordinary service to others, and you will not have the energy to create who you want to be. There is no goal better than this one, to know as you lie on your deathbed that you lived your true life because you did what made you happy. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.